The town of Cutbank has seen times of major expansion, swelling to almost twice its present size during the peak of the oil and gas industry boom years. It's fun to come back to your old hometown in the same street, the neighborhood where you used to deliver papers and play games and be a carrier delivering the Western Breeze and the Great Falls Tribune.
A lot of times, I mean, see how they've changed so much. You take, like here's one of the big, where somebody drove to Coeur d'Alene last weekend to go to a marriage, and that's the front page news.
The Western Breeze and the Cutbank Pioneer Press. Two newspapers in a community of just over 3,000. That is unusual. As a carrier of the Western Breeze for years, it changed from the day of 3 cents a copy. Time took its toll, jumping to a nickel, then a dime. In 1982 to 15 cents, and until the early 90s a quarter. The twice-weekly paper had to increase its price last year to 50 cents. Jim O'Day's father and Vern Munt started the paper part-time. It became so successful, it became a full-time occupation.
I think the economy in this town for so many years allowed us to have two different newspapers. And they are so different. We are more of the tabloid. We come out Tuesday and Friday. They're more of the conventional newspaper. They come out Wednesday afternoons. So there's a niche for both of them.
Just a couple of blocks away are the offices of the Cutbank Pioneer Press. Owned by Brian and Leanne Cavanaugh, this continues to be a family operation too. Brian's grandfather started the Shelby Promoter, and the weekly Pioneer Press was bought from Brian's father in the 1980s.
Leanne's the writer. I'm not the writer, although I do a few sports stories and things like that. But I got into it by family.
So the readers in this community get a wide array of news. I mean, a lot of things we both cover from different angles, perhaps. But I think it's just we each bring something different to the way we run our businesses.
One unusual twist in this small community, not only is Brian the publisher, he is the Cutbank High School basketball coach and has been for 7 years. So he gets to write the reports on the games that he coaches. And at the same game, you'll hear an old classmate on the public address system. Huggy Bear Hughes, or Ken Hughes, still finds Cutbank a great place to live and work. He does admit that it's different for kids today than it was when he and I grew up there.
Now, everything is pretty well lined out for the kids from the time they're 5 years old till they get out of high school anymore, and there's really no time to do what we used to do, Fred, where we would leave in the middle of the morning and be gone all day long and come back. And, right now, the way it's set up now is if you don't know where your kid is, you're worried about it.
The voice of the wolves, he remains in a family business selling equipment to those in farming and can't imagine living anywhere else. With the rise and fall of the oil business, farming and ranching is still the biggest show in town. In Cutbank, I'm Fred Pfeiffer from Montana's news station.
All this week, Fred Pfeiffer continues his visit to Cutbank as another part of KRTV's Our Town series. Tonight, Fred reports on the effects of the rise and fall of the oil industry in this small community along the High Line where he grew up.
During the 2 days we spent in Cutbank, everyone we talked to made no bones about it. The large and modern buildings that Cutbank still sports today were built with oil and gas money. Without that money, much of the town, including the school system, would have been much different. When I attended school in the 50s and early 60s there, oil and gas was still very prevalent.
The oil industry was paying a tremendous amount of money into the Cutbank schools in the form of net proceeds taxes. That meant that Cutbank had a standard, a school standard, financial resources that were beyond those of any of the other surrounding schools.
Building a 5,000-seat gymnasium in a town of 3,000 would have been impossible without money being pumped into the economy from oil and gas. That industry even paid about 70% of the taxes during the boom years. Even in the 60s, Cutbank boasted an aviation class where students learned to fly and maintain airplanes. In years past, there were names like Texaco, Carter Oil, and Phillips Petroleum. With electricity coming to Cutbank, the gasoline engine was no longer needed to run the oil wells. So a lot of homes were picked up, moved into town, breaking up the oil camps.
You have these same number of wells essentially in this area, but with a lot fewer companies. Phillips is gone. Now Texaco is gone. Union Oil Company has pulled out. There's been a consolidation of reserves under way fewer companies.
Croft says the average production in the area is only about 3 barrels of oil per day from the stripper wells. Not enough oil to attract anyone but independent producers. And others have noticed the same trend. Joe Montalvin came to Cutbank in 1952 as an engineering consultant.
So I was here all through the bad times, the growing times, saw the industry grow to the boom of the 80s when we got up to $35 to $40 oil, and then in 1986 the price of oil dropped, unfortunately, to $10 a barrel.
Talk to anyone, and there's no question in the Cut Bank area what happened when the price of crude oil dropped drastically. A lot of people just quit drilling for oil. MSR Exploration started in 1970 and recently merged with Mercury Exploration, making the company the largest producer in northern Montana and the second largest in the state behind Shell Oil Company. Patrick Montalban is now head of the company. He and others say it will take a large find to return good money to the area and the state. A find, he says, is in a highly controversial area, the Rocky Mountain Front.
You have to have commitment with the citizens of the state of Montana to try to develop these reserves. And I think the most important part is you have to have compromise. I think the industry is willing to compromise with the environmentalists, but sometimes you get a feeling that the environmentalists are not willing to compromise with the industry.
People in the industry say the damage to the environment would be minimal. Any damage, they say, would be far outweighed by the boost to the state, finding money for prisons, taxes, and other fiscal needs. In Cut Bank, I'm Fred Pfeiffer,
The heart
reporting
of
from
any
Montana's
community
news.
is its young people and the system of educating those children. Well, in tonight's Our Town series, Fred Pfeiffer returns to the classroom and finds out what changes have taken place since his school days in Cut Bank.
When I attended Cut Bank High, there were probably 600 students in school there. Today, there is about half that number. Most of the men and women my age who attended Cut Bank High School tell me things are a little bit different here. There are actually more opportunities for both boys and girls. Larry and Betty Salloway both graduated from Cut Bank schools and have now seen 4 daughters graduate from the same school system.
The girls' athletics, all of our girls were in athletics, all athletics. So I think there was more opportunity for that when I was in high school. Girls didn't get to do those things.
We were in high school, the girls had FHA or FAA.
Tumbling.
And tumbling and cheerleading, you know, and girls' PE.
The problems in today's small communities are different than the 50s and early 60s.
I think it's a great place to raise kids still. But as you know, there are drug problems now that we didn't have or even think possible when we were kids growing up, Fred. And you see that now, and that's a big concern. You know, and it obviously diminishes the quality of life, but it's a reality.
Many of the students we talked to from the class of 2000 look forward to some of the same things we did more than 35 years ago. Drag Maine, get up a game of basketball after school, and just figure out who you are.
Not much drug pressure, but there's a little bit of drug and alcohol pressure, but not very much. Just try to fit in.
I think I'd like to be in an orchestra or along those lines.
No, I won't.
Like a big city or something. Maybe more opportunity out there.
Not for sure, just I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I can and can't do still. Maybe something along the lines of teaching in the arts somewhere.
School counselors working with the class of 2000 see the students facing different challenges that the class of 1966 didn't ever envision.
I think it's more the family structure a little bit has changed a lot in the last couple of years, and I think that puts additional pressure on the kids.
I guess maybe peer pressure. I see a lot of different groups. I guess that would be if you're in the in-group or some people that just don't mingle. You see a lot of people that are by themselves.
They're idealistic. They don't like it to have you think that, but what they are. And they're just fun.
And the real success of teaching, she says, is discipline. As students, our goal was to stay out of the principal's office at all costs.
Well, some of the very best friends I have in this community are people that were called in a few times.
And every segment of the community had nothing but praise for the school system here. In Cut Bank, I'm Fred Pfeiffer reporting from
Cut Bank
Montana's
very
news
frequently
station.
appears on the national weather map as the coldest town in the country during the winter months. A large penguin sits at the edge of town to draw attention to that fact. As we continue our look at Cut Bank, Fred Pfeiffer reports tonight on the town's efforts to attract more business and visitors to its community.
Growing Growing up in Cutbank, I can attest to the cold winters. You appreciate a warm home when you deliver newspapers at 30 below. Some folks in town have taken the cold spot in the Nation brand and pointed it out to anyone entering town.
It seems like, we're always right up there at the top of the map and standing out for our weather. Taking advantage of the opportunities that creates is one of the areas that we look at. Doing anything is better than doing nothing.
The town is working on creating an internet web page, looking for aviation interests who like lots of clear days, and the Montana Department of Transportation is working with the community to develop a rest area right in the middle of town.
The people who live here in Cutbank and all of Glacier County realize that to have a good, sustainable economy, we have to diversify our economy. So we're looking at opportunities that go beyond the natural resource industries, particularly tourism. Tourism is really a growth industry, not just in Montana, but certainly in Glacier County with our proximity to Glacier National Park.
The town is also working to host its unique cultural opportunities right at the edge of the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, and there are also 5 Hutterite colonies in the area as well. The sheriff of Glacier County is in his first term as sheriff. He is a Native American. His father worked for the sheriff's office for years, and now he is working on improving relations between all people in a big county. Sheriff Racine is also trying to find a way to get jurisdiction just across the river at the Seville Housing Project, an area the city or county technically has no authority over.
We try to keep the controversy and the conflict out of the jurisdiction, the border. We, as law enforcement people, we're the ones that have to serve the people. And so we look at the people in this county as the general population.
The town's mayor was quick to point out that the Glacier County Historical Museum just north of town is off the beaten path, but well worth the stop.
It's kind of what you might say in ways one of the best kept secrets in the Cutbank Glacier County area.
And the theater on Main used to be the hub of activity.
You could get in the door for the matinee 10 cents, popcorn was a dime, and Coke was 10 cents, and that was our entertainment for Saturday.
For some younger people, middle school and grade school students, that is a center activity. But since the advent of videotapes and movies that you can take at home, people are paying more attention to those movies now.
Agriculture has always played a big role in the survival of Cutbank. Roughly half is farming and the other half livestock.
We had a real early fall, and the snow cover was deeper than we've seen in a lot of winters. We're just in pretty good shape for going into the spring.
And the long, cold winter wasn't quite as kind to the livestock part of the industry. But these people along the Canadian border are survivors. Always have been, probably always will be. In Cutbank, I'm Fred Pfeiffer from Montana's
This week,
News
Fred
Station.
Pfeiffer has given us a sampling of the people and places that make up the town of Cutbank. Tonight, Fred goes back to his hometown for one final look in KRTV's Our Town Conclusion.
Over the years, you always remember your roots and where you grew up. Life in Cutbank as a youngster was pretty special, kind of like the Happy Days television series. Huggy Bear Hughes was a sidearm pitcher nobody wanted to hit against, or catch for that matter. And probably one of the biggest things I remember was the day Elvis Presley came to town on a train.
Well, Steve Brandvold is the one that actually got his autograph. And Steve and I were good friends, and we went down to the depot together, and we're just waiting at the train station there for that to happen. And Steve got his autograph.
But the town photographer and historian, well, he'd rather forget Elvis ever paid a visit. Did you get his picture?
It's interesting. I got Truman when he come to town.
A classmate and fellow Boy Scout, Rob Quist, made quite a name for himself, singing songs about life and growing up in this area.
I grew up on a ranch farm north of Cutbank, about 12 miles, and I constantly rely on my roots here in Cutbank to write songs and to kind of give me a base for everything.
Alan Lowry, a retired county road department employee, is now a county commissioner, and he was my scout leader. He lived right across the street. His 3 sons were my best friends.
No, it's really nice of you coming up and our acquaintance. Like I say, we really enjoy your newscast down there. Once in a while you get the weather right up here. But
I haven't seen them in years, but the Lowry boys, well, Lauren's a public works director in Cut Bank. Lenny has the same job his father had, only in East Glacier, working for the road department. And Dwayne works for the state at the job in Helena. All stayed pretty close to their roots.
Boy Scouts was quite important, and the friendships that I developed at school, playing sports and those types of things are things that I carry with me.
And it feels pretty nice to be working in your hometown and hopefully trying to do some good things for the community.
Once in a while when I have some time off, I'll go out of my way to drive up by the old place and have a look and see what kind of memories it might stir up.
And in the Navy, too.
Yeah,
They're all ship people.
Water people. It's probably because of that swimming pool right down the street that we used to spend our summers at.
Yeah, mine.
You never know where life is going to take you. But if you get a chance, I would strongly urge you to stop in Cut Bank, even if just for a cup of coffee. You might run into some old friends like I did.
Oh, lady, honey, where are you? Seems like every time I catch up to you, you got someone to do. Old rock and roll from a couple of old rockers.
In Cut Bank, I'm Fred Pfeiffer, reporting for Montana's news station.